The preliminary NTSB report is out on the Civil Air Patrol Cessna 182 crash that occurred back on 23 November near Palisade Mountain, Colorado, taking the life of the mission pilot, Susan Wolber, age 60, with about 5,000 hours of flying time and a lot of time with the Civil Air Patrol. Also taking the life of photographer Ray J. Roten in the right rear seat of the Cessna 182, but surviving the crash was the observer pilot Randall Settergren in the right front seat of the Cessna 182. Randall had recently purchased an Apple cell phone, and that Apple cell phone automatically went off following the crash, connecting Randall with 911 dispatch, and he was able to get rescued quickly by helicopter. This mission practice flight departed the Northern Colorado Regional Airport, where the winds were fairly light at the time of departure, and then headed off into the mountains here to do observation and practice turns in photography. And eyewitness reports of the area at the time of the accident indicated that the winds were pretty strong at the time of the accident. But once it was not until after they finished all this photography that the accident occurred, just downwind of Palisade Mountain, located right here. And here's what the downloaded GPS data looks like on Google Earth, with the mission being accomplished up here, and then apparently heading for home. For an unknown reason, the aircraft turned into higher terrain and got in trouble just downwind of Palisade Mountain right here in very steep terrain. The accident occurred about 11:15 local time, and the purpose and the mission of the flight was to conduct aerial photography of the area for the Red Cross for emergency response planning. The survivor stated that the flight consisted of flying large circles over mountain roads in the valley, and the photography mission was completed. After completion of the mission, the pilot flew the airplane to the south of the mission area. The survivor thought that the pilot was to return to the base, the airport that they departed from. He stated that the airplane was maneuvering over trees about 1,500 feet above the ground level, heading towards higher terrain, a ridgeline. Within seconds, he heard the pilot say, "Oh," expletive, and the pilot lowered the nose and started to turn. He stated the airplane seemed to drop and that the airplane encountered a downdraft. He heard the airplane hitting the trees, and the next thing that he remembered was being on the ground. He tried to help the pilot and photographer and was worried about a fire. He said the entire sequence happened within seconds. Because of the impact, his cell phone called 911 automatically and connected him to a dispatcher, and he was rescued by a helicopter. And he stated that the rescue helicopter's flight nurse made a comment that the winds were swirling during the rescue. The survivor stated that the airplane and engine were operating normally throughout the entire flight, and that there were normal communications between the pilot, mission observer, and the Civil Air Patrol base. There were no radio or distress calls heard from the pilot. Due to the steep, rugged terrain, they were unable to do much investigation of the wreckage on site, but the wreckage was helicoptered out, and they're going to continue to investigate that wreckage and make sure that the survivors' testimony verifies with that of the wreckage that there was nothing wrong with the aircraft prior to the accident. So the question will never get answered is, why did Susan elect to turn towards higher terrain, towards this ridgeline here, instead of just simply returning home the way that she came into this higher terrain? Was there something that drove her to turn into here? Was there something that she was wanting to investigate in here? But it looks like the aircraft begins descending as soon as she enters or crosses this ridgeline, and getting caught in the turbulent flow of the winds on the backside of Palisade Mountain. A pilot with this much mountain flying experience would know the hazards of doing such maneuvering on the downwind side of this sort of high terrain in those sort of conditions. We may never know the answer as to why she made that turn. Was she forced into there somehow by the turbulence or the wind? She didn't communicate with the other crew members what this last maneuver was all about. We may never get the answer to that. Thank you so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.